Fire Emblem fans have been eating well on the Switch, and the latest entry, Fire Emblem Engage, is no exception. With its unexpected announcement last year, the titular brand new nostalgia-baiting gimmick promising to change up the Fire Emblem formula, and its weird-looking main characters drawing the ire of Fire Emblem fans, impressions have been decidedly mixed. Is Engage a throwaway entry in the already oversaturated Fire Emblem franchise? Or does it liven things up enough to be the best game yet? In this spoiler-free review, I'll be analysing all aspects of the game before giving you my final verdict. By the end, you'll know if it's the right game for you. With that out of the way, let's jump right into it. Engage takes place on the continent of Elios, 4 kingdoms surrounding a holy land. Suddenly waking up after a 1,000-year nap with no memory, our hero, Aelia, is told that they are the last divine dragon, a holy being destined to slay the nefarious Fell Dragon, Lord Sombron. Before taking their nap, Aelia slew the Fell Dragon and almost lost their life in the process. The newly revived Sombron is gathering the 12 emblem rings, magical rings possessing the spirits of heroes from previous Fire Emblem games, known as emblems. The race is on for Aelia to unite the 4 kingdoms and gather the 12 rings before Sombron can gather them first and bring about a cataclysmic event. In terms of storytelling, this is as Fire Emblem gets. Almost every trope, event, or character type has already been seen in past games. This is not the first game in the series to feature Divine and Fell Dragons, nor where the main character has no memory, nor where the hero has to unite multiple kingdoms. Given the involvement of previous games' heroes in the narrative, it makes sense as a celebration of all things Fire Emblem, and plays like a greatest hits of the franchise. Compared to previous games in the series, I felt Engage's story was way too slow to get going, and as someone who's played most games in the series, it felt incredibly predictable for the first 2/3 of the game. Once the game gets into its third act, does it start showing more originality, and it's the exciting late game reveals that redeem the overall story. The late game stuff is some of the best and most emotionally charged Fire Emblem storytelling we've ever seen. It's just a shame it's a long process to get there. This game is equal parts playing as it is watching, so with such high investment needed in the story to enjoy the game, I couldn't help feel a bit let down by the world building. The 4 kingdoms didn't have much identity to me, as all 4 of them fall very much into cliches. Furthermore, support conversations, little dialogue scenes you get as a reward for having your characters work together, focus entirely on characterization and don't reveal much about the world these characters live in. One of the most rewarding parts of the last game, Fire Emblem Three Houses, was getting little pieces of lore and backstory from these conversations, which in turn helped you uncover the mystery of that world. By comparison, there's no sense of mystery or wonder about Elios and its history. Overall, this is a straightforward Fire Emblem story along the lines of Awakening and Echoes. It does not have any of the multiple story branches or other experimentation that games like Fates and Three Houses had. It's not the best Fire Emblem story, nor is it the worst. Our main character is Aelia, who is playable as either a male or female version. Their weird mismatched hair and eyes take some getting used to. Coupled with their white outfit, the internet dubbed them Toothpaste-chan. It takes a while to unsee that comparison and get used to their weird appearance, but once you do, it's fine. Certainly a memorable design. And surprisingly, Aelia is a fully voiced and talkative main character. Previous games' heroes like Robin and Byleth were almost mute, so it's refreshing to see them interact and share their feelings with other characters. Despite being fully voiced and realized, there's not much depth to this character, especially for the first 2/3 of the game. They don't have many character traits apart from being virtuous or supportive of their friends. Like the overall story, there's some good payoffs towards the end, but they happen far too late in the game. As for supporting characters, this game has an insanely large supporting cast, perhaps the biggest cast in a Fire Emblem game yet. These all fall into Fire Emblem archetypes: noble retainers, gentle giants, elegant mages, tough women who hold their own against the boys, and so on. Amongst the large cast, there are a few exceptions which highlight the progress Nintendo and the games industry are making. Despite the medieval setting, all characters sound distinctly modern, reflecting the way people speak in 2023. The cast of characters is incredibly incredibly diverse, the most we've seen in Fire Emblem yet. This is the first time we've had black characters, and Fire Emblem's integration of LGBT characters continues to expand. For example, the character Rosado is never explicitly stated to be male or female, and while other characters use he/him pronouns when talking about him, you can only dress him in women's clothes. His gender status, and whether he's trans, non-binary, or something else is left unclear, and his status is already cemented as a queer gaming icon. And this is just one such example of queerness in the game, more explicitly on display than any other Nintendo game thus far. As for character design, these are the brightest, most colourful and flamboyant designs ever seen in Fire Emblem. The lead character designer is Miko Picazo, who is best known for designing VTubers. Yep, you heard that correctly. As a result, the flair these characters have is highly reminiscent of VTubers, with heart and star stamps on faces, risque outfits, gravity-defying hairstyles, and an emphasis on fashion. You can dress your characters in an insane variety of outfits, a lot of which reveal a lot of skin. If you want, you can put all your characters in swimsuits. This is the sexiest Nintendo game we've seen since Xenoblade Chronicles 2, and I'm not sure how I feel about that. I'm not a prude or anything, but it contrasts a lot with previous Fire Emblem games, and comes off as a little bit immature. While I think overall the character designs are exceptional, whether you think they belong in a Fire Emblem game will depend on your own experiences and personal aesthetic preferences. And outside of the main cast, we have the emblems, the spirits of previous game heroes that reside inside the emblem rings and support the main cast. Even if this is your first Fire Emblem game, you've probably seen most of these characters in Super Smash Bros. While I don't really feel bringing all these characters back for Engage was necessary, the team handled these characters exceptionally. Their designs and characterization are consistent with previous appearances, and many bring back their previous voice actors. It's a pleasure to spend time with them again, and with many of these characters appearing in 3D for the first time, their glow-up was handled well. Like the story, the characters are a mixed bag. While it was nice getting to know them, I felt that there were too many to get to know them intimately, and I didn't really feel the nostalgia-baiting emblems were really necessary. Still, it's a vibrant and fun cast, and whether you're a Fire Emblem newcomer or veteran, you'll find plenty to love here. While the environments reprise familiar ones from Fire Emblem, plains, forests, castles, mountains, beaches, and such, never has a game in the series presented them as beautifully as Engage. While battle maps are viewed from above, the vibrant color palette makes them much nicer to look at than the pale and muted ones from games past. Water and fire effects in particular look nicer than ever before. They're not mind-blowing, but are a definite improvement over what we've seen in the past. Side missions that center on the emblems take place on maps inspired by the game they're from. It was an absolute trip battling on iconic maps from Binding Blades, Sacred Stones, Radiant Dawn, Awakening, Fates, Echoes, and Three Houses. Like the characters, these have been blown up in spectacular fashion. Your reaction to these will depend on your experience, as never having played Shadow Dragon or Thracia 776, these maps just felt like any other. And finally, I can't not talk about your home base, the Somnial. The Somnial is a floating palace in the sky, and you'll spend time here between battles fulfilling the more social aspects of the game. This is the next iteration of My Castle in Fates and Garreg-Mach Monastery from Three Houses, and it improves upon those by a wide margin. This is one of the coziest, most aesthetically pleasing home bases I've ever enjoyed in a game. The distinctive features like the illuminated pool, flower garden, hidden cave, banquet hall, elegant bedroom, and more make it an aesthetically pleasing and relaxing respite from challenging battles. I honestly wish this was a real place I could live in and interact with characters in. Battling or otherwise, Fire Emblem Engage has the best looking environments in the series. Gameplay is divided evenly between battling and socializing. Let's start with battles, which are accessed from the world map. There are three types of battle: story chapters which advance the story, paralogs or side missions which flesh out the world, and skirmishes, which are simple battles to gain resources and level grind. This is a tactical RPG, with battles taking place on a top-down grid. Units can move a certain number of squares depending on their type, and can attack in front of them. The total number of squares in front they can attack is also dependent on their unit type. For example, Horse and Pegasus riders can travel far, while mages and archers can't travel far, but can attack across distances. The fun in the game lies in clearing enemies during your turn and advancing towards the enemy team's leader, and hoping your strategic placement of units pays off during the enemy's turn. If your unit is killed by a counterattack or during the enemy's turn, you feel that death personally. Your poor strategy caused them to die. Some of these battles get pretty intense, as in the later more challenging ones my heart was was beating during enemy turns, and I'd scream if my unit got killed. This is still 5-dimensional anime chess, and will still remain off-putting to newcomers. Yet, Engage is the most accommodating Fire Emblem game to newcomers so far. Selectable difficulties return, as does the option to play casual mode, where defeated units will return after battle, and Classic, in which defeated units actually die and do not return for the rest of the game. For maximum enjoyment, I recommend Classic, as you'll feel those character deaths like a punch in the throat. Returning from previous games is the rewind feature. Controversial as it may be, it is a necessity for beginners and busy people. During battles, you have the option to rewind your turn and plan again, which is incredibly useful if you make a mistake and your unit dies. You simply need to rewind and try again, rather than play the battle from the beginning. Purists argue this ruins the experience, but the opposite is true. It makes the game more approachable and less frustrating. Furthermore, tutorials are really concise and easy to understand. They felt like a bit of a slog as a returning player, but newcomers won't feel as overwhelmed by the game as a result. As for Engage's titular gimmick, it's an exciting change that adds a fun new twist on the Fire Emblem formula. Equipping your units with emblem rings gives them extra skills and allows you to engage or fuse with them for 3 turns, buffing your unit and unlocking even more powerful skills. Skills they unlock are borrowed from games the emblems originate from, so it was pretty nostalgic to see one-off gimmicks come back. As battles spike in difficulty, coming in clutch with an engaged emblem is a thrilling and rewarding rush. While I didn't think any changes or enhancement to the gameplay formula were necessary, I was glad to be proven wrong by the engage mechanic. That about covers it for battle, except to say I was disappointed at how few paralogs there were, with the majority of them focusing on emblems. While these were nice, I would have liked paralogs involving original characters. Additionally, to make up for the lack of branching story routes, Engage expects you to grind skirmishes to fill out game time, which to me is not that exciting. Now, let's talk about the other half of the game, socializing. The social aspect of more recent Fire Emblem games is divisive, with some gamers getting wrapped up in the lives and romance of characters, and other gamers calling it a waste of time and detracting from battles. I fall into the camp of the former, and believe the social aspects are why modern Fire Emblem succeeds. Between battles, you'll spend time in the Somnial, your home base. The Somnial provides a ton of things to do, which prepare you for battle and build the relationships between units. There are mini-games like a rhythm-based exercise one, a Star Fox-like target shooting wyvern ride, and a pleasant fishing one. Returning from 3 houses is cooking and sharing a meal with units, gift-giving, and training in the arena. Doing this is necessary to build support between units, which makes them stronger when working together in battle. Raising a support level unlocks a conversation you can watch, which reveals the characters' backstories and shows off how the different characters play off of one another. As I explained in the story section, these are excellent, but unlocking them is disappointingly more difficult and more tedious this time around. As good as it was to see support building features from 3 houses return, they've been downgraded significantly. You can only cook once between battles, and training is limited to 3 rounds only, with trained units being entirely randomized. While it's easy to raise support between Alia and others, it's nigh impossible to raise support between 2 non-Alia units. 3 houses made it easy to grind these, while Engage makes it more difficult. Compounding this is the sheer number of units, meaning you'll never see all the support dialogues unless you grind the easy optional battles accessed from the world map. And in addition to support, there's now Bond, relationship building between units and emblems. Bonding allows you to inherit an emblem's skills without the need to equip them. Increasing bond level unlocks bond conversations, which were incredibly disappointing. They're usually just a single line of dialogue with a reference or wink to the previous games in the series. It's not enough to justify their inclusion, and makes emblems seem tacked on rather than integral to the story. And circling back to skill inheritance, this is a wild feature. Not only can you inherit skills, but you can change your unit's class and equip them with a variety of different weapons and engage them with any emblem you like. This makes Engage the most customizable Fire Emblem experience by far, and the sheer customizability is endless and overwhelming. This makes the game replayable, as you can run through the story with an entirely different build and roster of characters, and no 2 players will have the same experience, as you'll naturally gravitate towards a playstyle that is comfortable to you. To sum it up, Fire Emblem remains the king of the tactical RPG genre, and Engage sets a platinum platinum standard for the genre going forward. With all the improvements to combat and an exciting new battle gimmick, Fire Emblem battles have never felt this fresh or this exciting, yet still accessible to newcomers. Gameplay is let down by the social aspects, which are too hard to grind with too many units to choose from. With battles being more important to the overall experience, Engage has the best Fire Emblem gameplay thus far, but the letdown in the social aspect prevents it from being a home run. Whether handheld or docked, Engage runs at a consistent frame rate with no issues. Character animations are smooth and the best looking the series has presented so far. Fully animated cutscenes have the quality of an anime TV series, looking professional and visually spectacular. Unfortunately, during scenes with fire, water droplets or other particle effects, there's some notable compression, like watching a low resolution YouTube video. I suppose this was necessary for it to run on the Switch, but it only happens from time to time. Unfortunately, there are some texture and resolution issues too. In dialogue scene long shots, textures from a distance look ugly and you can see repeated tiling, breaking immersion. Thankfully it's not that prevalent, only distracting in a few scenes. And during support conversations taking place at the Somnial, the backgrounds are excessively blurred, making them look low res and far too pixelated, clashing with the overall clean presentation. These issues are noticeable but minor and won't interrupt your game experience. Overall, Engage looks and runs fantastically. Engage has a rock-solid Fire Emblem soundtrack. It continues the high-quality composition the series is known for. Battle themes build throughout a battle, starting nice and pleasant in the first few turns, and becoming more intense once you start fighting powerful enemies. When entering a risky battle, the music is filled with dread and tension, underscoring those moments where you hold your breath, praying the enemy doesn't critical hit you. I cannot describe how much I love this feeling. In support and bond conversations, music matches perfectly with the emotional direction of the conversation, whether cheerful, funny, sad, heartwarming, or whatever. It's interesting to note the increasing experimentation Fire Emblem music has these days. Three Houses experimented with electronic dubstep for its villain themes, and this experimentation continues here. The bad guys have a motif that sounds like trap music. Weird, right? Similarly, blaring electric guitars make their debut in the main series for boss battles, returning from Warriors and Warriors 3 Hopes. Both of these are unexpected for medieval fantasy, but it's fun and doesn't detract from the game. During the emblem-focused paralogs, classic Fire Emblem themes return, and it's a nostalgic treat. Even if you haven't played the games they originate from, you've probably still heard them in Super Smash Bros. Classic themes like Together We Ride and With Miller's Divine Protection sound incredible with modern orchestration, and I couldn't help but smile upon recognizing them. As for voice acting, just wow. I played as male Alia, and his voice actor Brandon McInnes has done an outstanding performance here, elevating the often cheesy dialogue and really going hard during emotional moments. While still an underwritten character, vocal performance alone cements Alia as one of, if not the most memorable Fire Emblem protagonists to date. The same goes for the rest of the cast. The voice actors went hard on their line reading, and it improves upon the already stellar vocal direction of Three Houses and Warriors 3 Hopes. It's commendable the work that's been done here by all those involved. Fire Emblem Engage is the Fire Emblemiest Fire Emblem game yet, to both its benefit and its detriment. Presentation is slicker than ever before, with battles and character customization refined to perfection with an exciting new gimmick thrown on top. On the other hand, the story delivers an overabundance of Fire Emblem cliches, and doesn't do anything new until way too late into the game. And there's a lack of reward in getting to know the overwhelmingly large cast of VTuber-like characters. For newcomers to this series, this game is an excellent place to start, but veterans may feel it's all too familiar and want something more. It's not the best Fire Emblem game, nor is it the worst. It is simply the essence of Fire Emblem, distilled to its purest and most unashamed form. So, what are your thoughts on Fire Emblem Engage? Let me know in a comment and I'll reply to every single one of them. The release of Engage is already generating a lot of Three Houses versus Engage discourse, with seemingly the same number of people on both sides. While both games are their own thing and great in their own ways, personally, I'm on Team Three Houses. I loved the branching story routes in Three Houses, and found the experimental storytelling much more engaging. Three Houses has some of the best and most interesting lore in a video game, and playing through all 4 of the storyline routes to get the full scope of the game is still an unmatched experience for me. I still enjoyed Engage immensely, and it's worth playing both Engage and Three Houses to see how they compare. So, if you enjoyed that video, don't forget to drop a like, comment, and subscribe. Soon, I'll be posting a Fire Emblem Engage spoiler discussion, in which I'll make my predictions for DLC and the future of the series, so look forward to that. So thanks for listening to me ramble, and I'll see you next time.